You're listening to the Valley Current.
Okay, so how are you?
Well, pretty good. Now we had another death in the household. Another funeral took place. Lee's mom died at the age of 92.
I was notified a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, it was kind of a lived too short or died too long or combination of both. She really was bedridden for a long time, and it was kind of sad in a way to watch her die because we were right there as she died. I mean, we were literally right there for the death. And
did she have some illness?
No, I think it was just lack of mobility, I guess is what you would say. She basically was 100% bedridden and wasn't eating very much, and then stopped eating altogether. Wasn't taking liquids very much, then stopped taking liquids altogether. And pretty much immobility, lack of appetite, lack of thirst, no real desire for food, no real desire for drink. She shriveled down to, yeah, it was pretty much, she shriveled herself down to maybe 70 pounds.
Those are typical properties of the body shutting down. Did she had what is called cachexia?
What is that?
Cachexia. It's the condition that you described where a person loses weight and doesn't want to eat. And it's the end stages of cancer, but I have seen it as the end stage of many deaths. It's called cachexia. You can look it up later.
It sounds like a Greek term.
Possibly, yes. But it's a well-known term used in medicine. So have you sold your California home?
It's been on the market. There's been some activity, but I guess Silicon Valley has taken quite a shock from some of the stock market vibrations. And so it's one of those things where you say to yourself, the stock market is affiliated with high-end real estate. So it's on the market. Yeah, cachexia says it's a condition that causes extreme weight loss and muscle wasting, a symptom of many chronic conditions such as cancer, chronic renal failure, HIV. She didn't really have any of those things, I don't think.
You did not?
Did not. But she did.
Your voice is in a staccato mode.
Okay, I'll talk a little slower. She really was at the end of life, I guess is the right way to put it. But you and I have talked about what does it mean to be at the end of life, right? What does that mean to be at the actual end of life as we know it? I think the lack of mobility was a huge factor for her, and she's not been mobile for several years. So
that's largely due to muscle wasting.
Yeah, she didn't really want to get out of bed. Her whole day was in bed.
Yeah.
Everything was basically 7/24 in bed. So it's sad. It's a sad state of affairs because she stopped talking. She stopped really, she was mostly in bed, mostly sleeping most of the time. She watched a little bit of TV, not much. TV might have been on, but I don't think she was watching it. I have to say, it was not the way I wanted to. It didn't visualize for me the way I would want to live the last couple of years of my life, bedridden and essentially nursed, 7/24 nurse, right?
That's a typical ending for a lot of people. The alternative is a stroke or a heart attack, or running or being hit by a bus. Take your choice.
I think I would rather get hit by the bus No, I mean, it'd be fast. It'd probably be painless. I wouldn't want to survive as a quadriplegic, but if it could be really a sudden thing, there's a funny film, I forget the name of it, where this guy who's a comedian, puts on like the greatest performance of his life and then walks out of the comedy club and gets hit by a bus. And people were saying, well, maybe that's what he wanted. Like he wanted to basically leave on a high note. Like literally, he walked out of the comedy club and he got hit by a bus. And people were like, he must have thrown himself under a bus because, you know, if we had a magic way to do it, I'd put up that scene because quite a telling scene. The guy does like the best comedy of his lifetime. And it's like the height of his career. And then he leaves the club and he gets hit by a bus. It's pretty dramatic ending.
Well, I now for the first time know that you're definitely intending to stay in Florida.
Yeah, I have to say, we went to Texas for the funeral because she wanted to be buried next to her husband, and the plot is in Texas. So we had to move the body to Texas, and then we had a big funeral in the big, chapel and the whole 9 yards with the priest and with the minister and the whole thing. And I have to say, it's quite a production, at least in Texas, quite an expensive production to get a formal funeral with a casket and a vault and the burial ground, the whole nine. It's amazing because I remember walking the streets of downtown Mountain View, and there were literally several Asian companies that had street front stores on Castro Street advertising discounted price for cremation. And they were near each other, like a block away. And one was like $3.99 and the other was like $4.99 or $4.49. And I thought to myself, that's like a fraction, that's like a small fraction of the price of a formal, at least Texas style funeral. And of course, it costs money to have the real estate plot and have it maintained and so on. So it's quite an interesting business. Think about it.
Well, Ruth and I had decided very early in our marriage that we both wanted to be cremated. When Ruth was cremated by the, what is it called? The something society.
The Neptune Society? The Neptune Society?
Yeah.
Right. That's a big winner.
The cost was about $2,000. That included everything.
Okay.
And then we received what is supposed to be her ashes. You can't prove that. But she wanted to be buried by a redwood tree. And we did that for her. Up the street from where my house is, there's a redwood forest. So the whole thing cost about $2,500. It's exactly what she wanted. And that's what I want.
That's like 10 times less than what a big Texas funeral costs.
Well, it's a cultural thing. There are people who want a huge mausoleum for $100,000 in marble. You've seen them. And there are other people like me and Ruth who are just as satisfied with cremation, because the body in that $100,000 mausoleum will eventually get eaten up by microorganisms and small vertebrates who find their way in. And, it's when you're dead, you're dead. What happens after that is just a matter of satisfying the needs of the loved ones of the dead person. It's all cultural.
It's true. And we spend a lot of our GDP, I guess, collectively on these different cultural approaches to death, right?
That's right. There are, as you know, in some cultures, in Mexico, for example, well, even in New Orleans, there's parades. And so you run the entire spectrum of celebration types, from none at all. Now, we did have at Ruth's death a private celebration of her life at my home. My 5 children and their families all attended. One of my daughters played our baby grand piano of tunes that Ruth played herself. And I had each person say what they wanted to say about their contacts with her. And so that was about as low key as you can be. But everybody said something, and then we drove a quarter of a mile up the road to the redwood forest. One of my daughters and I had previously dug a hole that fitted a basket that she loved baskets, and so we had a proper sized basket into which her ashes were put, and some notes from her children. And then we covered the spot, each with a spade, a small, brand new spade of sand, which is one of the few customs that we kept in respect to a Jewish funeral. That is, each person put a small spade of sand on top of the box, and then it was closed with earth. We're sure not to have anything metallic in it because you find people wandering around with metal detectors. So we're the only ones who know where she's buried. My family is they're the only people who know where she's buried.
And is that your plan, to be right next to her in that same tree or near that
Yes,
same tree?
yes.
Right
Or whatever.
Right on your property, right in your backyard there, right?
That's right. And again, the same way the death will be remembered is as I described it.
Yeah, the Jewish tradition is actually the full casket approach, isn't it? The regular Jewish tradition?
Yes, but there's an important qualification. The casket can only be in pine wood, which is one of the most popular woods. It's certainly the least expensive, but that's got nothing to do with it, because that custom goes back 2,000 years at least, where a pine, all real Orthodox Jews are all buried in a pine casket. Nothing more elaborate than that.
And is that because pine disintegrates rapidly?
I don't know the reason, honestly. Maybe would be, but I don't know. But anyhow, it avoids $10,000 caskets.
Well, I know it's an expensive casket, expensive vault, expensive process.
Yeah.
It's amazing when you think about how that money could be used for education and health of grandchildren, and all sorts.
The other thing that happens that I find to be a valuable custom is that on a couple of weeks prior to the anniversary of the death of the person, there is a custom in which the Yiddish, the Hebrew name is Yurtzeit, which means year's light. And it consists of a little candle in a glass, what looks like a shot glass, only it's round, perfectly round. And you light it when the Jewish day begins, which is when the sun goes down. And it burns for 24 hours. And it's there. Of course, it's something you don't do every day. So you see it all the time. At night, you put it in a safe place where it won't start a fire. But at least you see something flickering that reminds you of that person. And it's, you buy them for less than $1.
Right.
Again, it's just a tradition that goes back several thousand years.
Just the first anniversary? Just the first anniversary?
No, every anniversary.
Oh, every anniversary.
Every anniversary.
So it's a little bit like JFK's got some sort of flame by his burial site, right, John Kennedy?
I guess. But the flame is used, for example, in Arlington National Cemetery for veterans.
Mm-hmm.
That's burning constantly. So there are those kinds of customs. But in the Jewish faith, they're very humble.
I would think that the funeral business is off to a amazing success over the last couple of years, given COVID. Like, if you want to look at how this pandemic actually has caused certain businesses to succeed, I have to tell you, the burial ground on a weekday was really busy with multiple different ceremonies and burials going on. And I don't know if it's COVID, if it's COVID in combination with other things. It's just aging in America, all the above. But this is seems like a busy time for the funeral business.
Yeah.
And I guess with it, the flower business and certain other businesses that kind of complement the funeral business.
Yeah, that's true. I'm sure that's true, but I'm not sure. I'm not so sure that the increase in deaths over what is normal has in fact increased significantly. I don't think that the statistics show that it has been a terrific increase. The other thing that has to be remembered is that worldwide, there are 80 million people born every day. So there's an increase in births. In this country, I don't know the number, but there's an increase of several million each year in this country over the average number of previous years. There is a slight increase. When I was a kid, I remember distinctly, and you will too, I remember when the population of this country was 125 million.
Right.
Now it's more than 3 times that amount.
The data I'm getting suggests that the United Nations estimates that it's more like 140 million babies per year, or about 385,000 each day. 140 million a year. It's been stable for the last 50 years. I don't know. That's what this is reporting online. What were your numbers?
Well, I don't have any numbers that I keep up with. It's just a recollection of something I read recently, but I really don't keep up with those statistics.
Yeah, they're saying 350 to 400,000 people are born daily on average, and that we've gone from
That's worldwide.
worldwide. And then we've gone from About 100 years ago, there were 2 billion people on the planet, and now there's closer to 8 billion, maybe even 9 billion on the planet. So the planet is carrying a larger load.
Tune in next time on The Valley Current.